Big news today. I read this by Zach Brennan from Endpoints News. I'll put it up on the screen. Peter Marks from the US FDA. He's the de facto regulator-in-chief when it comes to vaccines. He's saying that kids' vaccines don't need to hit the target. They don't need to hit the 50% vaccine efficacy against symptomatic SARS-CoV-2 target. That was the target that the FDA themselves came up with in the original pandemic. They came up with this target, 50% point estimate above, and the lower bound of the 95% confidence interval has to be above 30%. That was their minimum efficacy standard for vaccination. That was a standard that they themselves have set, and that was a standard that the initial vaccine trials did clear for adults. But the pediatric vaccine trials, both the Pfizer and Moderna, appear not to have cleared that bar. And Peter Marks is talking to congressional officials, and he is saying that it's okay. We'll probably authorize it anyway. His quote was, literally, if these vaccines seem to be mirroring efficacy in adults and just seem less effective against Omicron like they are for adults, we will probably still authorize. This is an incredible statement by the regulator. Incredible. Let me talk you through why. We have standards for a reason. The standard right now is they picked it. It was arbitrary. And if anything, I would argue is on the low side. 50% isn't as good as what we wanted. Thankfully, we got higher. We got in the 90% range in the initial vaccine studies against symptomatic SARS-CoV-2. 50% is quite low. It's quite low. And if you have a very low vaccine efficacy, in a nice paper by John Ioannidis and others, you can have compensatory behavior that actually leads to a lot more viral spread. But when it comes to kids, it's kind of a moot point. Because when it comes to kids, the CDC's estimate from a few months ago shows that 75% have seroprevalence. It's probably higher than that now, higher than 75%. We all know people who are coming down with COVID-19 for the first time. Higher than 75%. Taking a child under the age of 5 who's already had and recovered from COVID and trying to make them better off with a vaccine against the original Wuhan ancestral strain, that's an uphill battle. It might even be possible. I don't know. You need a mega randomized control trial to parse it out. You need millions of people in the arms to kind of see if there's a signal. It might even be possible. But the absolute upper bound, absolute risk reduction against severe disease and hospitalization has got to be super, super low. Because once kids have it and recover from it, they generally do pretty well. If they get it again, they do better than they did the first time. So Peter Marks is saying something that blew me away. He's saying that, that standard that we set, that guidance that we put out, well, we're flexible. We can wave it away. And that's not what you need to be saying. Lowering the regulatory standards for vaccine products is not the direction the FDA should go. They need to be upholding the standards they've set and raising the standards. What will the standard be going forward? Will we enter a scenario where we talk about a yearly children's vaccine with antibody titers only, with no threshold of vaccine efficacy below which we don't accept it? That to me is a very unusual scenario. It doesn't make a lot of sense. We know the moment that the FDA pulls the trigger on EUA, no matter what the CDC does, they'll be able to issue some guidance on how you ought to do this. And I'm hoping that they won't say this is a should recommendation. It's an you could recommendation, maybe something like that language. But we know there are many preschools that are going to immediately mandate this. These are private schools or summer camps or something like that. They're going to immediately mandate it. The most zealot people will immediately mandate it. And they won't make exceptions for natural immunity or that you just had the virus. They make no exceptions at all. And so what he's talking about is authorizing a vaccine in a setting where you got 75% minimum seroprevalence and the vaccine efficacy could be less than 50%? How much less? I think I saw in the Moderna press release in one arm it was like 37 and 23%. How much lower can it go? 10%? From New York State data for 5 to 11, we have vaccine effectiveness, not efficacy, because this is real world data, of 11%. How low before Peter Marks says, hey, that's too low? How low before we get to that point? And the logic to me is convoluted. If the adult vaccine becomes less effective over time, tell me why that means you should accept the less effective kids vaccine? If I sell you a blood pressure pill and in year 1, it perfectly controls your blood pressure, year 2, kind of so-so, year 3, it just stopped working, am I allowed to debut a new blood pressure pill in kids that just don't work at all? That doesn't make any sense at all. It's contradictory to basic logic. If a therapy loses efficacy over time, why does that mean the bar to be a therapy is lower? It should mean that we need new therapies. We need a new mRNA construct. You need to kind of aim at the thing that's actually out there now and not that original thing that's from 2 years ago. Maybe you want to rejigger your process, try something new, but it doesn't mean we just keep lowering the bar. This is ridiculous. I think Peter Marks has set a number of bad precedents throughout this pandemic. I don't think he's doing a good job as a regulator. That's been my concern. I think a number of people feel similarly. I think we have a lot of people talking about some issues in regulatory science that are important, like aducanumab, that Alzheimer's drug. Should that have been approved? Probably not. Should the CMS have paid for it? No, and thankfully they made a wise decision there. We have all these cancer drugs approved with very weak data, and I think a lot of people are rightly frustrated by those approvals. Where are those people on this issue? I don't think they want to touch this issue with a 10-foot pole because it's a very sensitive issue, but this is the exact same thing. Regulatory science. When we let companies sell their products for billions of dollars, we need them to prove to us that their products make us better off. They can't, maybe, it might, it could. No, prove to me that it does make someone better off. And all of these things he's doing, lowering the bar, it will enrich companies. It will lead to perhaps a situation where we're facing mandates in some, likely blue city private institutions, but it may not make us better off, and it may be deeply problematic, and it will further erode the regulatory bar. What will the future be? Why would we even, some people may ask, and I think some extreme libertarians hold the view that we don't even need the FDA. And if they really say the efficacy bar is so low, one wonders whether or not they serve any purpose. They don't ensure that the products that leap onto the market are efficacious or safe. They merely set arbitrary constraints on the market. They hinder free market capitalism without offering those countervailing benefits of the regulatory state. So people may wonder if we should just do away with them. I don't hold that view, of course. I've written a few books on this topic. I hold the view that regulation, when done well, can make us all safer and healthier. But this is not done well. We have standards for a reason. The standard was low, and it shouldn't be done away with just because they can't make the cut. I really wonder what Peter Marks is thinking, how much political pressure he's under, and what his goals are, and what is his thought process. The argument that has been offered online is that if the adult vaccine is less effective with time, we will accept a less effective kids vaccine. That's illogical. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It doesn't make any sense at all. If a hypertension, blood pressure medicine doesn't work with time, you wouldn't accept a new drug that doesn't lower blood pressure. You want a drug that does and has a sustained effect over time. That's the goal of this. And you want to even better prove that it doesn't just lower blood pressure, but actually reduces strokes and MIs and hospitalizations and death. That's the goal of the lowering blood pressure business. And the goal of the vaccine business is to prevent severe disease and hospitalization. People may hope that this kid's vaccine lowers the risk of MIS-C, hospitalization, and death, but the trial is underpowered to claim that, and as the vaccine efficacy diminishes, and as Omicron is uncoupled from MIS-C, hospitalization, and death, as it is, making that claim with confidence is uncertain, and we would be extremely uncertain with the level of evidence that Peter Marks is accepting. And the problem is it will immediately be linked to mandate. It won't just be a choice. And the other problem is that part of the purpose of the FDA is to protect people from making choices because they're feeling fearful or scared. The FDA protects us from making a bad choice. That's part of their purpose, and they're losing that goal as well. I don't know what they're thinking. I think this is a terrible decision. I think Zach Brennan covered it well in Endpoints News, and I think we all need to think critically about this. This is a very important issue in regulatory science right now. So, this is what you get on this channel. You get these kind of analyses of healthcare policy. If you like what you hear, go to the bottom. It helps a great deal. Like, subscribe, leave a message, comment, and recommend this video to someone else. Until next time.